Thanks, Alex.
Hey, Rick.
How we doing?
Great. How are you?
Very good.
We got a few people still coming in through the waiting room, so I'm going to continue to let people in, and we'll get started here in maybe 30 seconds.
Sounds good. Hey, Cliff. I didn't see you out there. How you doing?
Sorry, Cliff, you're muted still, buddy.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Yeah, spent the weekend in Boston and was at LIMRA Monday at a big conference, so had the opportunity to present there. So Boston's such a cool city for people that like history and everything.
Well, and I'd say that's quite an honor to be one of the presenters at a LIMRA conference or event like that. So somebody thinks you know what you're talking about, right?
Well, even if I don't,
Well, we'll go ahead and get started here today, everybody. It's great to see everybody. Appreciate you being here. Obviously, this is an investment that Rick and I are making in all of you. We like to host these monthly sessions with Cliff, and I think we've gotten some great traction with them, and we just appreciate you engaging. I think we're planning to continue these through the end of the year. I know it's obviously gets crazy during the AEP and OEP season, and none of us think that we have the bandwidth to do anything else, but I do think there's some value in staying tethered to some of the best practices and some of the things that Cliff has to present. So I'm planning to continue to invest. I guess Rick and I haven't really talked about that. You okay doing this through the end of the year, Rick?
Absolutely. Yep.
Perfect. So is there anything you wanted to share before we get started, Rick?
No, I think first off, I appreciate everybody joining. Looks like we've got a good group here, and again, love to hear Cliff's message. I would just encourage everybody to stay as dialed in as you can, and I'm sure you're going to grab something from today.
Excellent. So today's session is entitled "A Seat Reserved for You," and just so you guys know, this is not like canned content. This is stuff that Cliff is building each month, for our organization. And so I think each week or each month he has, kind of fresh content that we're sharing that obviously builds on what we talked about in the past. So I'll continue to manage the waiting room and letting people in. But Cliff, if you want to take over, the floor is yours, my friend.
Awesome, Silas and Rick. Again, I don't say it probably enough, but I value so much the relationship I share with Rick and with Silas and my partnership on these, because without these guys making this available, I wouldn't be here. And I also appreciate so much all of you taking time out of your busy schedule to be here too, because we all have choices where we can spend our time. So thanks so much for that. A quick preview of, and I'm not finished with it yet, but on September 11th, kind of our standing time to meet is the second Wednesday of every month from noon to 1 Eastern time. And so next month, I'm going to be sharing with you the extraordinary power of resilience and how that plays into the success of our practices, and 10 things you should give up if you want to be successful. 10 things that you should also give up if you want to be successful. So I've titled today's lesson, and I have not presented this. So this is new material that I kind of wrapped up about 3 weeks or 4 weeks ago, kind of created an outline and a handout for you. And so we're gonna give this a shot today, and we'll have some good discussion and some interaction as well. A seat reserved for you, because there is a seat reserved for you on the team that you're a part of, in the territory that you're a part of. And as we approach open enrollment, there's a seat reserved for you during that 8 to 9 week window of time. And so we start to prepare now for a successful open enrollment. We don't get to that magical date on the calendar and then say, well, what is this going to look like for me? What do I want to get accomplished? What are my goals for open enrollment? That seat's reserved right now for you to plan that out. And we'll share more next month on that as well. So here's a question, and I think this is in your handout. If I ask you, what would you try if you knew that people would never say this about you, would never be critical? What would you try in your business? What new thing, what new marketing, what new branding, what would you try if you knew people would not be critical of you, would not judge you? Here's the deal. Sometimes we stay very small because we're afraid of what others may think about us or may say about us. Here's the thing. You're your own ceiling. I'm my own ceiling. And we place these artificial ceilings on what we feel we're capable of or what's possible. And so you're your own ceiling. Regardless of external circumstances, they'll never, ever be the root cause of the ceiling that you place on your practice, on your success, on your business. Your ceiling is your refusal to allow those circumstances to define who you are and where you want to go with your business. And so how do we have a breakthrough? And this is kind of a lead up to what we're going to talk about today. But how do we actually go about, how do we have a breakthrough in our business? How do we break through that ceiling? The first thing we have to do is we have to imagine what it looks like on the other side. We have to literally, what does that look like for us if I have this breakthrough? What does that feel like if I have this breakthrough? And what happens is a lot of times when we bump up against a ceiling and we can't seem to break through that ceiling, what's happening is there's something standing in the way. So we have to be able to see it and feel it. And a lot of times, if we're not having a breakthrough, the pain is too great to go there. Whether that's the sacrifice that we have to make, whether it's the uncertainty, whether it's the change that we're going to have to, bring on. Maybe it's a habit that we need to change. Maybe it's too great a risk. So we have to ask ourselves, if we're bumping up against a ceiling, is that really what I want? Do I want that for my business? Do I want that for my life? And a lot of times when we hit those ceilings, we have to be honest with ourselves and say, is the sacrifice, am I willing to pay the price to get there? Is the risk too great? Am I willing to do what's necessary to pay the price to get there? I'm going to tell you I'm going to tell all of you, it's worth it. It's worth the sacrifice that you have to make to get on the other side of that, because you're your own ceiling. And regardless of external circumstances, they'll never, ever be the root cause of the ceiling you place on where you can take yourself in this business. The sky's the limit. The sky's the limit. And so I'm going to share with you a passage, and it's in your handout, but I'm going to condense it down a little bit. And this to me, it speaks to me, and it's an incredible passage. And this is a passage that was part of a bigger speech that was given all the way back in 1910, actually April of 1910 in Paris by Theodore Roosevelt. And so the title of this speech he gave was called Citizenship in a Republic, but it became known very famously, some of you have seen this passage, as the man in the arena. Not to be sexist or anything, because there's a lot of women, and I value that, but clear back in 1910, it was titled The Man in the Arena. And I believe this passage has the potential to change how you approach your business. I truly do. And I think it has the potential to change how you approach your life as well. And so I'm going to go through just a few sentences of this passage that I kind of gave you the whole passage on your handout, but it's not the critic who counts. It's not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done it better. The credit belongs to the person who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred with blood and sweat and dust, who at the best in the end knows the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails daring greatly. I love that passage, because here's what it's not about. It's not about winning. This is in your handout. It's not about losing. Now, we all want to win, right? But it's not about winning. It's not about losing. So what's it about? It's about being vulnerable. It's about being vulnerable, because we all want to show up and we want to do good work and we want to make a difference in the lives of the clients that we serve. We do. We absolutely want to make our work matter, and we want to make a difference. Now, if you're going to show up and be seen for great work, for making that difference in the lives of your clients, I'm going to give you one guarantee. One guarantee. And here's the guarantee. You're going to get your ass kicked. That is, I will guarantee you that if you put yourself in the arena and you show up and you spend any time in there whatsoever, especially if you're committed, if you're all in, that's the guarantee I'm going to give you. You're going to get your ass kicked. So you have to decide. You have to decide. If courage is a value that you hold, and I hope all of you hold courage as a value, that is a consequence. That is so if courage is a value you hold, that is a consequence. You'll get beat up from time to time. Now, we all have critics in our life, right? That's just part of the deal. We have to just accept that. We all have critics. That's just kind of part of the deal. Here's how I think about critics. And here's how I want you to think about them. If they're not in the arena getting their ass kicked too, I'm not interested in their feedback. I'm not interested. Now, I want constructive feedback, and you should want it too. I want information to get better. I truly want that. But if I have a critic who's in the cheap seats, sitting up in the stands, so to speak, and just talking about how I messed up or how I screwed up, I'm not interested in their feedback or their commentary. So I want to talk very specifically with all of you about the arena. And I want you to visualize the arena, the lights, the crowd. I want you to put yourself there. I want you to literally put yourself there and visualize it. So when we step into that arena, the fear is this. And I think it's in your handout. I got some bullet points there. What's the fear? Well, I'm scared. Sometimes we're scared, right? We're going to put ourselves in that arena, in a position. So there's some anxiety. There's some self-doubt. There's maybe some comparison, maybe failure. And so where do we go? Because we all have some of those feelings, right? And so where do we go? What do most people do? What do most people do? When we step into that arena, there are certain things that are going to speak to us. They're going to be in the back of our mind where there's these whispers. And so what do most people do? Well, we got to suit up. We got to put our uniform on. We got to tape up our ankles. We have to armor up, right? Because this stuff is hard. I'm scared, uncertainty. What if I fail? What if I trip up? Anxiety. These things are hard. And what happens is they can even be paralyzing from time to time. I'm scared. I'm anxious. All this uncertainty. I'm not sure if I can take that risk. Vulnerability is part of fear and self-doubt and uncertainty. But being vulnerable is also a part of these. Love and acceptance and belonging. You all belong to something bigger than just what's in it for you. You belong to a team. You belong to a territory. That sense of belonging. Trust is there. Empathy. Can you walk in the moccasins of that next prospect and see the world from their perspective? Creativity and innovation are there. And so without vulnerability, you cannot create and you cannot innovate. So to put your best work out there, which I want all of you to do you want to risk having your critics in the arena? Yes or no? We're going to get to that because you want them there. And I'm going to tell you why you want them there. So the answer is yes. But we're fearful from time to time. Man, I don't want somebody, being critical of me because we're all human. And so it's so important to see things from two perspectives. So as agents and as sales leaders, it's so important as leaders, and you're all leaders. And what are those two perspectives? The first perspective is this. You want to see the perspective of the person you're working with first. And let's just assume that's a client or a prospect. And why do I say that? Because it's going to give you the greatest opportunity to make a connection with that individual. to say, I see you, I hear you, and I'm listening to you. Then you can use your own perspective to give direction. Too many times in sales, because we're confident in our own ability, we know the direction they need to take, the product they need to sell or to buy. And so what do? We want to give direction. We want to close the deal because we're confident in our ability and we know the action they should take, but we haven't made that connection first. And so if you think in sales about making the connection first, two perspectives, connect with that prospect first, and then you can use your own perspective to give direction. So if I was role playing that with Rick, I'd say, Rick, I hear you. I'm listening to you. I understand your situation. I really appreciate you sharing that with me. Based on what you shared with me, here's the direction that I feel we need to take that's going to give you and your family the best possible outcome. And it's so much easier for Rick to accept that if I've made that connection first. But those two perspectives are critical. And so here's the deal. You have no control. So think about the critics. We have no control who's in that arena anyway. There are two seats in that arena that will always be there. They'll always be there. And these two seats are occupied by this: scarcity and comparison. So scarcity, what do I mean by that? Scarcity. We're thinking, what am I doing am I even being original in my work? How am I differentiating myself? Or I look around, everyone else is doing the same thing I'm doing. Or there's 100 people better trained and better equipped to do this than me. So what am I really contributing? Or does this even really matter? Or, man, do I even belong in this arena? All these things are, especially for newer agents. We have some newer people on the call. And so that scarcity mentality is not a good mentality to have, because you do make a difference and you are equipped and you are trained to do this. The other one is comparison. As humans, we struggle with comparison. It's always there. It's always there. Comparing ourselves to what others have or to what others do or to the house they live in or to the car they drive, to the vacations they take. It's always there. It's always there. Okay, the third seat is left open. It's left open. And who's it left open for? It's left open for a teacher, a mentor, a coach, a friend, maybe a peer, one of your coworkers. Those seats are left open. They're left open. I'm going to stop and get into some dialogue and a few questions here in just a second. Here's the thing. We all care about what people think of us. I mean, I believe that to be true for all of us. We care about what people think, right? And so when we stop worrying about what people think, we lose our capacity for connection, which is so important in the business you're in. If I don't give a rip about what Silas thinks or what Dan thinks, I'm going to lose my capacity to connect with Dan at the level I want to connect with him. I lose that capacity. But when we become defined by what people think, we lose our capacity to be vulnerable. See, vulnerability is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. And so again, when I stop worrying about what people think, I don't give a rip about what Silas thinks of me. That's not true. I care immensely about what Silas thinks. And all of you on this call, if I truly don't give a rip, I'm going to lose my capacity to connect with my next best prospect at the highest possible level. But when I become defined by what people think, I lose my capacity to be vulnerable. I'm going to stop there for a second and just open it up for a question or dialogue or a thought. Who has a question, a thought, a comment? Are you with me so far? We're going to keep unpacking this arena. We're going to keep unpacking it because it's powerful, and having the courage to step over that line and put yourself out there. Not have that scarcity mindset. Silas, any thoughts come to mind?
I'll just say that quote that you shared is one of my favorites, all-time favorites. I've always thought that that spoke to me just as an entrepreneur and as someone who has survived many AEP, OEP seasons. Like, you really feel that you are, in the fire, during those times. And
Yeah.
totally agree with you that, prepping and getting your mind right this time of year. We started preparation for AEP, OEP earlier this year than we ever have before. And I'm still feeling the crunch and the anxiety around not being fully prepared,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think all your points are very well made and very well taken.
Okay, who else has a thought? I'll just start randomly calling on people if I have to. Dan, you've always got a thought. Black Torque, talk to me, Dan. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, as you were talking through this, what came to my mind is you got to make that decision to go one way or another every moment.
Yeah. Isn't that true?
So it's not like you overcome it and all of a sudden you get on the other side and you're going, okay, this is easy. It's
Yeah.
almost every moment that you can either be defined by what people think, or you can actually engage and appreciate what they're saying to you.
Yeah. The thing is that the most successful people in any walk of life, and let's just think about the business that you're in. The most successful agents and sales leaders out there, they're scared of all the same things that we're scared of. And there's times when they're fearful and they're afraid to put themselves in that arena, but they do it anyway. They do it anyway. Because what's the alternative if we're inconsistent and we only put ourselves out there when it's convenient? We're not going to perform to our greatest capacity. And so even as hard as that is, we understand that we are going to get knocked down and we're going to fail from time to time, and that's okay, but we still do it because we can't sit idly on the sideline very long in this business, because everything you do is measurable. It's all measurable. The number of appointments you're running, the number of lead transfers that you're or the live transfers that you're accepting, the number of referrals that everything is measurable. The FYCRs, the leaderboard, all of these things are measurable. And so we go there anyway. And the most successful people, they just do it more consistently. They just do it more consistently. Now, it may not seem like a good thing to reserve a seat for your critics, but I want you to reserve a seat for them anyway. And then I want you to prove to them the difference that you're making in your work, that you're creating and that you're innovating. To say that I see you and I hear you, but do you see me? Do you see the work that I'm doing? Do you see the impact that I'm making through my work, through the difference I'm making? Because every single day you have an opportunity to impact someone in a very significant way. And so I've got a seat for you, and you're welcome to come in, but I'm not interested in your feedback unless you're in that arena as well. And so if you're going to spend your life in that arena, if you're going to spend your life showing up, and I mean making a commitment and truly showing up, there are a couple of things you need. Number one, clarity of values. It's in your handout. Clarity of values. I think you might have to write it in. I can't remember what's in there or not. I don't have it in front of me. But you need clarity of values. Do you know what you stand for? Character, honesty, integrity. Your unique and differentiated value proposition. Absolutely. You need those. You have to have those. Can you clearly articulate your value to me as your next best potential prospect? And understand that people buy today what's different, not what's the same. So do you have a unique and differentiated value prop? Do you have a playbook that you can open up and say, here's what it looks like to do business with me. I'm applying for the job today of helping you, not today, but next week, next month, next year, 5 years from now. I'm applying for the job of being your agent for the rest of your life. And so when you look at me and I look at you, we have to understand that, because our foundation today begins on a foundation of trust. And then you open up that playbook and you say, after you become a client of mine, here's what that looks like going forward. And then you have your touch points, and you can show them and you can clarify. You're not going to sell them and then be down on the road looking for the next prospect you can sell to. You're going to go as deep as you possibly can with every single client and show them what that is. 30-day, there'll be a 30-day touch point. There'll be a 90-day. There'll be, what does that look like? And you start to differentiate yourself from everybody else out there that's doing what you're doing. So clarity of values and having that is critical. The second thing that's so important is you need one person who will be completely honest with you. Completely honest with you. Someone who will pick you up when you fall and when you fail. And hopefully you will. Because if you're not failing, you're not really showing up. If you're not failing, you're not showing up. You're on the sidelines. Because we are going to fail some. We are going to stumble some. Just like the phrase. You need that person who's willing to look at you when you fail and say, you know what? That wasn't your best. But I believe in you. And I know you can do better. Someone that's going to be completely honest with you. Man, Rick, that wasn't your best. But I still believe in you. And I know you can do better. And then what are you going to do? You're going to go back in the arena. You're going to put yourself back out there. And you're going to get yourself back in there. And that person is someone who cares about you. They have your best interests at heart. They love you in spite of your shortcomings and your imperfections, because we all have them. See, there's a lot of people that won't be completely honest with you. They'll tell you what you want to hear. I want to be completely honest with you. You did an awesome job, or that wasn't your best. But I believe in you, and I know you can do better. Now, where should those people be? They should have front row seats in your arena. They should be in the front row. Here's the deal. Don't spend your time trying to win over critics. Spend your life trying to make your inner circle proud of you. Because those are the people who matter most. I don't give a rip about a critic's opinion or feedback. I really don't, unless they're getting their ass kicked too. But I want feedback. I want information. But only if it's from someone that's in the arena and they're completely honest. Write these 4 words down: the company you keep. The company you keep. That's what I mean by your inner circle. Who you surrounding yourself with? Do they have your best interests at heart? The company you keep. So the critics are going to be in the arena, whether we identify them or not, whether we want them or not. And so don't let their talk or their criticism keep you small. Because sometimes they burst our bubble. And so don't let anyone's talk or criticism keep you small, or keep you from accomplishing your goals, what you're capable of. Don't limit yourself. What is your capacity? And so going into open enrollment, you want to be thinking about what's my game plan for open enrollment? And you want to set a specific targeted goal for open enrollment based on FYCRs, based on commission revenue, whatever your measuring stick, but it's got to be specific. And it is time bound, because there is a start and there's a finish to open enrollment. And so the more specific you can make your goal and your objectives during open enrollment, the better. So you're going to have an overarching goal for open enrollment, but then you have to break that down and you have to run your practice based on a weekly scorecard. Because even a 2-month or a 2.5-month period of time, it's too long for you to stay in the game 24/7, focused on the small, simple things that you have to execute on. So what does that weekly scorecard look like? So you take your overarching goal for open enrollment, and then you're going to break that down into week by week segments. And at the end of every single week, you're going to have the courage to cash out the till, to say, what were my results this week that are moving me towards that 2.5 month objective? Because 2.5 months it's too long for you to just stay the course, so to speak. So we have to break that down and say every single week has to stand on its own. And every single successful week is going to add to the objective that you have or the outcome that you want for open enrollment. I'm going to stop there for a second. Everybody with me? Okay, Joni, give me your thoughts.
So this year is going to be not just new for us in the expansion, but I've added sub-agents. So for
Good for you.
me, right? So for me, it's not just planning my crazy, but it's planning their crazy, keeping it in front of me, being able to keep the pulse on it, and then make sure that our customers get the same experience across the board, right?
Right.
So there's going to be a lot of extra critics because our customers are going to get different people and slightly a different feel. So for me, it's thinking through this process that you're walking us through and going, okay, how can I make sure that each of my sub-agents are able to achieve those things? Because the last critics that we want that end up being negative are our clients themselves.
Absolutely.
So this will be a good process we can walk through together.
That's great. That's awesome because and congratulations for that, because what a I'm a firm believer that sub agents can form a very vital part of our teams. And there's a I mean, I had the opportunity to spend some time a week ago with Ronnie, and she's added some sub agents and is just doing a tremendous job in that arena. And so it's so important when you go into open enrollment, if you do have sub agents, that they know exactly when they show up on a Monday and we have a 1 week segment out of 8 or 8.5 week. What is it? 8 to 10 weeks, the total from start to finish, give or take. Well, they need to know every single week, I have to own my scorecard for this week. And so I am a link in this chain, this bigger chain, and I have to be responsible for owning my outcomes for this week. And so the more that you can make sure that every single one of your team has a scorecard that they're responsible and that they own, even your support staff, people that are in a support role going into open enrollment, because it's a very, very finite period of time. And there's a lot of agents within health markets, they're going to generate 40, 50% of their revenue, if not more, during a 2.5 month window of time. You got to be all hands on deck, right? All hands on deck. In how many times do we hear someone say, well, I just have some time to kill, or I'm killing time. During open enrollment, there is no time to kill. Everybody needs to be focused on their area of responsibility. So thanks for sharing that. Who else has a thought or a comment or a question?
So Cliff, a couple of things came to mind as you were talking there. One is, I think it's important to have a plan other than just survival. I feel like I've had a couple of AEP seasons where my biggest plan was I just need to survive this. It wasn't as articulate. I hadn't laid it out in detail what I wanted to do each week, and this is kind of pushing me towards that. I'm sure Christy, my sub agent on the call, is excited to hear about that. But we're not just going to survive. We're actually going to try to figure out how to thrive during that time.
Yeah.
I also go back to a previous leader in health markets. He was always asking us, what are we capable of, right? And I think that's a question you asked a little bit ago. And then, one of the things we really teach and train new agents is that we want them to track what they do so that at the end of the week, they can come back and say, okay, what was the plan for the week? Or what was the goal for the week? Did I hit that goal? If not, why not? What are we going to do to tweak it for next week? And I think that's going to become uber important on a weekly basis as we get into, the months of October, November, and December. So just piggybacking on some of the thoughts you had there.
And that's great commentary, because what do we human nature is such, we all know for the most part what we need to do. And when we're not holding ourselves accountable to what we know we need to do, we don't want to face the music. We want to avoid it. And so a lot of times when I'm coaching someone individually, they want to talk about all the things that they didn't commit to, and they want to hide from the fact that, man, I made these commitments to you and to myself, but I fell short on well, what do they want to do? They want to talk about everything else. We have to look in that accountability mirror in this business every single day. And that's not easy from time. I'm not saying this is always easy, but it's so important that we hold ourselves, or we have someone that's in this with us, that's holding us accountable. And I'm a firm believer in peer accountability. So if you can partner up, if you're a part of a team and you hold each other accountable and you keep track of your goals and you share those with someone else, if you commit your goals to writing, because some people say, well, I got all these goals, and they don't really have a lot of goals because they haven't committed, they don't have a plan. They haven't committed them to writing. If you have goals and things you want to accomplish during open enrollment, and you put a plan down on paper, and you have someone that you share that with, a team member, a peer, someone, the probability of you accomplishing those goals goes up by 42%. Why wouldn't you do that? If I'll give you a 42% increase right now. If you go into open enrollment with a plan, it's in writing, and you commit that and you share that with one person, an accountability partner, someone, the probability of you accomplish that goes up by 42%. If that's true, which it is based on research, why wouldn't you not do that? But most people don't. They don't. Most people don't. And so, and we'll have a little more time for some discussion. And so when the last seat, who does that last seat need to be reserved for? It needs to be reserved for you. So when you look up and you're innovating and you're creating and you're coming up with a better way to run your business, more efficiencies, having systems to do better work, who's the most critical person? Who's the biggest critic? It's you. I'm my own worst critic. You're your own worst critic. It's you. And so we all have, it's human nature, I think, but we're all so self-critical. And here's one of the things that happens when we are self-critical. We have this picture, we all have this picture of what we're supposed to be. And so one of the things that happens is we have this picture of who we are and what we're supposed to be. And when we dismiss or when we shed the parts of ourselves that don't fit that picture, what does it do? So I've got this picture of what I'm supposed to be. And then I start to dismiss, or I start to shed the parts of me that don't fit that picture. Here's what it leaves. When we orphan these parts of who we truly are, and we dismiss them or we shed them, it just leaves the critics. It just leaves the critics. They're always going to be there. And so we're all self-critical, and we have this picture of who we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to look, all these things. And so what happens is we start to dismiss parts of us, or we orphan some of these parts that don't fit that picture. And if we're not careful, who does that leave? It just leaves the critics. So what's reserved in this seat? And this is towards the end of your handout. Where we came from, how we started, the people who care about us, and the defining moments who make us who we are. And finally, there should be this person who believes in what we're doing and why we're doing it. And that person who says, I get it. This can be scary to show up and to put yourself out there. And it can be dangerous sometimes to be seen, to step into that arena. But here's the thing. It's not as scary, dangerous, or terrifying as getting to the end of our lives and thinking, what if I would have shown up? What would have been different? What would have been different? And so I want you to show up for your family. And I want you to show up for your customers and your clients. And I want you to show up for each other. You're part of a team. You're part of a territory. This can be a lonely business. You all know that. So I want you to show up. And so what is true, what does belonging even mean? What does true belonging mean? True belonging is actually a spiritual practice. And it's the ability to find purpose, meaning, and fulfillment being a part of something that's bigger than us. And you all have the opportunity to be a part of something bigger than just you. You're part of a team, a community. You're part, you truly are. But it's also this. It's also having the courage to stand alone. Because sometimes in this business, you have to stand alone. And so how cool is that? The ability to be a part of something bigger than you, to be a part of a team. You're a part of a team. And feel that and be there for each other, but also when necessary, having the courage to stand alone. And that speaks to the business you're in, because you are part of a team and there is training and there is support and all these things going on. And you're part of a company, you're part of Health Markets. So the company, the territory, the local team, if you want to be a part of something, you have the opportunity to be a part of something, but you also have to understand that to be successful in this business, you have to have the courage from time to time to stand alone. Nobody's, running by, getting you out of bed, saying you got to be at your computer, you got to start your day. That's beautiful, because that speaks to the independence of the business. You're in business for yourself, but not by yourself. It's the beautiful part of the business that you're all in. You can make of it what you want. And so we have a little time left. I'd love to just open it up. You can ask me anything, anything you're struggling with, or an objection that you're struggling with. What does this really mean? I've had people ask me this question before: can you care too much? Can you actually care too much? And my response was, I don't think you can care too much, but what you have to understand is when you care too much, there are times when you'll get hurt. But that speaks to vulnerability. If I care too much, it means that someone may let me down, that I'm counting on, or someone may disappoint me, or someone may not hold up their end of the bargain. And so if I care too much, sometimes I may be disappointed, or I may get hurt. I mean, that was my response. I don't know if that's a good response or not, but I'm not sure you can care too much. But when we're vulnerable. There are times we're going to get hurt or be disappointed. So let's open it up for some dialogue. Who has Ashley, what's rolling around your head?
I really like the vulnerability. I think that that's a game changer when you learn to use that in your personal lives, especially with children and your spouse. And then when you're trying to figure out the business, being vulnerable with your clients, letting them know that you don't know everything,
Yeah,
and setting up your path is really helpful, because that vulnerability just leads to openness and growth and figuring it out in just a way that really helps.
yeah, it's so true. For a long time, I viewed that word as weakness. And I've learned over my lifetime to not view the word vulnerability from a position of weakness, because it's not. Vulnerability it can be a position of strength. And people that say that they have no vulnerabilities, they're just lying to me, because I'm not buying it. I'm not believing it, because from time to time we all are, and we're afraid, and we're scared of an outcome, or we don't want to take that risk, or can I really make it in this business, for those of you who are newer? And so you can, but we have to have the courage to step over the line and put ourselves in that arena and do some of the hard lifting, because this business gets easier and easier and easier over time. It's a simple business, but it's not easy. And you've all heard that. And so where does the breakdown occur? And I've had people ask me, Cliff, what do you think is more important, the plan or strategy or the execution? And you get varying answers, but my answer is this: they both are. Because you've got to have a plan and you've got to have a strategy. But then you have to be committed to the execution side of what's in that plan or strategy. Because if it's just a great plan and a great strategy, but you're very inconsistent in your execution, it's not going to drive you towards the outcomes you want. But they're both important. And so have a plan going into open enrollment. Set a goal, set a targeted goal, set a minimum stretch. I'm a firm believer in setting 3 goals: a minimum goal, take it to the bank. I mean, you could, Rick, you can lock this production amount in, take it to the bank. Minimum stretch, that's within your realm of possibilities, and it's within your area of areas of strength and your knowledge and all that. But you may have to stretch to the outer limits of that. And so a good example of a minimum goal would be, because we never want to go backwards. So you look at those of you who've been in it a year or longer, and if you've been in it less than a year and you haven't been through open enrollment, go to your sales leader and they'll help you with this. What should my goals be for open enrollment? They'll help you. But those that have been in it for years, more than a year, been through this, a minimum goal should, in my opinion, be more than you did last year. But it may not be a lot more. But you want to go forward. You want to grow your business. A minimum, take it to the bank. A stretch goal is 50% more. Set your sights out there. Set your benchmark out there. So if you did, 50,000, I'm just throwing a number out, but if you did 50,000 FYCRs during open enrollment last year, doing 50% more, could you get to 75,000? And then a possibility goal, some great things would have to happen. Some outside the box things would have to happen for you to hit a possibility goal. But a possibility goal would be doubling what you did during an open enrollment last year. So if you did 50, you go to 100. If you did 100, you go to 200. That's a possibility goal. It's out there, but it's still possible. So minimum stretch, possibility. Minimum, take it to the bank. Take it to the bank. Stretch, set your sights, raise that bar. Really stretch yourself. We're all operating on average at about 60% of capacity. Some more, some unfortunately probably less, but on average, based on research, 60%. There's 40% more there for the average individual. Some are at 80%. There's still 20% more. You are your own ceiling. And regardless of what comes down the road externally, they'll never be the actual root cause of the ceiling you place on your success. You got to do it anyway. You got to find a way around it, or you run through it. You run through it. Okay, another question. Ashley, thanks for that. What about Aaron? Aaron Fields. What's rolling around your head?
Pretty much the part about what is reserved in the seat, where we came from, how we started, the people who care about us in our defining moments, pretty much how we're molded and got where we are, but also what else we can do to get us farther than what we are and make ourselves better and do better and
Yeah.
get ourselves to a higher goal that we want to be at with the things that we have and just building on those.
Aaron, that's great. Do you think we can get there on our own by ourselves? Or do you, no. It's hard, isn't it? It's hard. Thanks for sharing that. What about Jeff? Jeff Armstrong. Jeff, you've got a thought or a comment. I know you do.
Well, thanks for all this, Cliff. This is really enlightening. Early on, you were talking about two chairs, one being comparison, and I've got my head wrapped around that. But you also spoke about scarcity, and I'm having a hard time putting that in context.
Well, so what, when I shared that, what came to, I mean, did anything scare, when you think about a scarcity mindset or mentality, it's saying, I'm never going to measure up, or I'm not going to know as much as this agent doing these big numbers, and how are they even doing these things, and I'll never be trained or equipped. I feel so small. Am I even making a difference here? Or am I even contributing anything to this team or to my customers or clients? Does my work even really matter? Do I belong here? Man, I don't even know if I belong in this business. That's what I mean by a scarcity mentality or mindset. And we have to wrap our arms around the fact that we are trained, we are equipped, we do have things to contribute. Our work really does matter. Because sometimes when we look, again, that scarcity or that comparison, we look around at all these things that other people are doing, and it's like, I'm not even showing it. I'm struggling to get to tier 2. And does my work even matter? That's what I mean by that. And I'm here to tell you, I don't care what level of production you're at right now. Your work matters. Your work matters. Because every agent that's tier 4, they started at tier 1. They got to tier 2. And they set their sights, and they got to tier 3. And they learned along the way through those experiences. And not everybody's going to be a tier 4 agent. I get that. But there's people doing tier 4 times 2 and 3 and 4 and 5x. Interesting. What's motivate that's a whole different, I'd love to go research 100 or interview and say, what are the things that, because there are, I don't know what tier 4 is it, 225 this year, Rick? 2.25. I've learned your terminology and all your acronym, or a lot of them anyway. But it's, I've had people say, competition is that there's a difference between competition and achievement. And I'll give you my definition. If I'm highly competitive, I have to win at all costs. Regardless of my level of achievement. So I blow my goals out of the water, and I set goals for myself, and I exceed those goals. But unless I'm number 1, or unless I'm beating everybody else, I'm not content. I'm not satisfied. I'm not happy. And that's the difference between being highly competitive and having a high achievement drive. Somebody that has an incredibly high achievement drive, they're keeping score based on what their goals are, where they want to go with their business, the number of clients they want to serve. And if someone beats them, they're the first in line to congratulate that person. Because there's only one number 1 agent walking across the stage of Italy, or next year in Austin. And I'm hoping to be there with all of you in Austin next year. There's only one person. So if we play this game based on having to finish first, we're going to be disappointed way more than we're going to be happy and fulfilled and successful. But if I set goals based on my achievement level, and I accomplish those things, and I build a more successful business, and I serve more people, it shouldn't matter what somebody else is doing, because I've accomplished what I want to accomplish, and I've achieved the things that I want to achieve. Because I think it's and I'm a competitive person through athletics and everything. I'm highly competitive, but I think it can be dangerous to view this business strictly from the lens of competition versus the lens of high achievement. Rick, do you have a thought on that? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And again, I think, something that you said earlier, and Silas jumped in on, I think timing on this is perfect. Preparation, this is really going to be one of the biggest opportunity years. And I know a lot of agents I hear, they get into annual and open enrollment and it's just like, let me hang on and get through it. And at some stages of your career, that's really what it's going to be. But those that start now and really start to plan out, your days and your weeks, and don't let anything just grab you and go, plan it. And you're going to find that the opportunity is just immense. And the things you said about, tier 4 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 times X. I mean, I just think back, we were just having this conversation a few weeks ago. You just think back to 4 or 5 years ago where, people were just getting to tier 4. Now we have people doing 1 million FYCRs in a rolling 12. That's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
But it's just because they don't stop. They're just going to that. They're taking their business to that next level. And the beauty of this business is you can really kind of take it where you want to.
Yeah. Yeah. Great commentary. Is the smarter person in your household, is she on the call today?
Probably is.
Ronnie, are you out there anywhere?
Yeah, I'm here.
There we go.
Hiding out though.
There's
so
that smiling face.
Screen
We had a great time a week ago or so when Ronnie and I spent some time one-on-one. We've got about 1 minute. Give the listeners your words of wisdom as it relates to anything I shared or any thoughts that you have. Maybe I hit a nerve or hit a point that spoke to you.
I think the vulnerability piece is important, that no matter where you are on your health markets journey, I mean, I've been with them since 99. It's still okay to say, I don't get something, I need more help, I need clarity. And to talk to somebody about that to help you grow, that it doesn't show weakness, it shows that you're wanting to grow. So, when you talk about doubling production, I get scared to death every time. Rick will say, Mike Felice, what's your goal for next year? And I always say 100, and they're like, no, you did 150 last year. You did 200. You can't have your goal be 100. I'm like, why not? I get scared, like physically scared. Like, how am I going to do that every year? How am I going to come up with 200 new clients or 100 new clients? So I have to kind of break down, what am I actually scared about? But I need somebody else to bounce that off of, to kind of rev my engine a little bit lower in terms of how nervous I am about doing something. So it's okay, how many clients a week, how many appointments, just kind of settle it down. So even if you're a top, I don't care if you're a number 3,000 agent or you're top 20, you need to be vulnerable enough to say, this is where I need help. I ask people all the time on our team chat questions about DSNP, because I'm number 1 in Medicare, but I don't do a whole lot of DSNP. I'm not too proud to say, I know somebody knows better than I do. Steve Gerke can tell me something on under 65. I don't know. He's on the call here. But don't let your ego get in the way of being vulnerable, and ask for help, and then actually listen to what help is offered and follow through with that. Because you're never beyond needing help and vulnerability if you're trying to do better all the time.
Great comments. Great. A great way to wrap up the call today. I'll take one more if anybody has one. We're bumping up against the hour. If we need to cut it there, we can certainly do that. I want all of you to know I value this. I value our time together. I try to bring things that will maybe challenge your thinking. You don't need me to explain a new product to you, or how to fill out a fact finder. That's not my place here. My place is to really challenge you so that you think about your business differently, and bring to you some things that you won't get in the normal day-to-day training that's provided by your sales teams and by health markets. But I want you to know I respect the job that you all do, and I respect and appreciate health markets as an entity. You're part of a special organization. So until September 11th, we'll Salas, Rick, we'll kind of call it a wrap, and hopefully you took a couple things away today.
Thanks, Cliff. I appreciate the content, but I'd also appreciate you pushing people a little bit to share. When you look across the Brady Bunch screen here, we've got some really talented individuals that are on this call, and we got some brand new agents that don't even know, where to begin right now. So I appreciate you pulling some of some of the top agents out and ask them questions, because I do think that commentary is really, really important to all of us.
We learn from each other. I mean, anytime I'm part of something like this or part of a study group, I learn as much as I give, and I'm running, 2, 3, 4 study groups for health markets with sales leaders. I don't have all the answers, and I've been doing this for 4 decades. I have a lot of questions. I don't have all the answers, and I learn as much from the people that I'm with in our monthly study groups as they're learning from me. And that's what makes this business beautiful, because most people in this business, they're givers and they want to share. They're not trying to hoard or corner, the best ideas. The best of the best want to share their knowledge and their experience with others. So again, you guys make it a great rest of the week. We'll see all of you on September 11th.
Take care, everybody. Have a great week. Thanks for being here.
Thanks a million.